Hello there. How are you? This is Harleen, one of the members of Keep Going Baguio. I hope you are doing well today. Well, after our Random Tandems episode, we are bringing you another informative episode from the Keep Going podcast. Today, we're going to talk about gender and mental health. But before we are going to talk about it, let us first listen to John and Josephine, who shared their views on what would they want people to understand about the LGBTQ+ community's mental health struggles.
Hello and good day. My name is John Fernandez Raspado. I am a national and international pageant title holder, a pageant coach, an LGBT rights advocate, an HIV and AIDS awareness advocate, an environmentalist, and also a mental health advocate. Today's topic is understanding the LGBTQI community's mental health. Mental health is one of the most tackled crises amongst the LGBT community. More likely, we experience a range of mental health problems such as depression, anxiety, suicide, suicidal thoughts, self-harm, alcohol abuse, substance misuse, and others, not to mention discrimination, bullying, hate crimes, non-acceptance, isolation, or non-inclusion, and homophobia in relation to sexual orientation, gender identity, and expression. So let me just run through some struggles. Mental health problems actually takes place when we are young, when we are trying to find out or questioning ourselves who we are or what we are, our self-worth, or even our purpose in life. At that very early stage, we enter an identity crisis, a mental health crisis that is not usually tackled within the family. That is why most LGBT youth take this issue upon themselves. This may be the very first struggle of the LGBT youth. That is why parental guidance plays a crucial role in their upbringing. Parents should let their young minds know and understand what genders are, and not just merely saying the do's and don'ts, but explaining to them thoroughly. Coming out is one of the hardest things to do, as this is a make or break point in their transition. Being rejected by the family will put a mark on their minds as they grow old. Some will cope through it, while others don't. Some may be disowned by their families. Some tend to run away or even take their own lives. Timing is very vital in coming out. For those that get accepted at a young age are very lucky. Those that come out at a late stage need to compensate for their worth. Just like me, I came out when I was already stable, had a job, and was already independent. Let's talk about sex, love, and relationships. They say that it is hard to find love in LGBT. And yes, that is true. As an LGBT, you have to really identify your gender and sexual preferences. For example, for gays alone, they need to know their sexual preferences if they are top, bottom, or versa. For lesbians, one way or two way, and so on and so forth. Well, there is no perfect match to each, but some do work. You just have to need to find compatibility. Nonetheless, looking for the perfect partner will ease out loneliness. Someone to understand you and someone to be by your side through thick and thin. LGBT rights plays a vital role in the society, as it may help ease out mental health problems and other issues but this is still on its way. Not to mention human rights, civil rights, and also healthcare. Most importantly, the biggest struggle for the LGBT is acceptance. Acceptance by oneself is knowing who you are, what makes you fulfilled, happy, and contented. Acceptance by family, knowing that you have their support and they will always back every decision you make. Acceptance by others, knowing that there are friends and kins who share the same views and insights as you have. And acceptance by the community, knowing that you are a citizen who is not indifferent and should gain some respect, the same respect as human beings. It is sad and true that the LGBT are merely recognized and not fully accepted in the society. But always bear in mind that with love comes acceptance, and from acceptance comes understanding. And no matter what your gender is, we will always coexist because of the tenacity of the human spirit. And as our golden rule, love and respect one another. Good day.
How do you speak about something that was once commonly historically accepted, but now as if forgotten and even erased? What I want people to understand about the LGBT community's mental health struggles begins with the fact that we are just tolerated in our own country. We can be your parents, your siblings, your neighbor, your friend. Our mental health begins at our earliest age. We learn from our surroundings that tolerance is not acceptance. Our language shows what meaning we give onto others. Mental health includes our living interaction and history. It is our social, cultural, and emotional health. This covers our communication and developed detail of our environment, our past and our upbringing, our connections and values, how we are socialized to respond, and our basis on what concepts we accept in mind. Mental health is basically our well-being in our living experience. How we are interacted with depends on public memory. I want people to understand that our mental health struggle is a relatable struggle, a historical struggle that includes everyone involved, because society was normalized to exclude diversity. This brings about a paradox. All people are equal, all are constitutionally protected, but some are more equal than others. The LGBT community is not made to be exclusive, just like mental health is not exclusive. Anyone fighting for mental health knows any resulting benefit affects society overall. You encourage acceptance of what is human. We fight because we are made unequal. These realities were resisted from us under prejudice, bigotry, and being seen as lesser, in so many ways being silenced for being more. We are basically objectified, only seen as certain concepts and objects, happening in the lack of empathy and appeal. We lived without encouragement, through impossibilities, and being fetishized by others, just because we are able to express certain qualities inherent to any person. We get discriminated in employment, as discrimination is hard to legally prove, that even LGBT employers feel powerless. We face so much needless stress and artificial harm, just because someone else in authority interpreted us, not as who we are, not with our voice, and not with any listening. It is like a colonial way of thinking, where something is asserted over another, where authority cannot be shared. It plays against the diversity in mind and teaches to give control away. We have a diversity of strengths and perspectives, as well as resilience through loss. We value community and belongingness because we live through their absence. We wish for nobody else to feel as bad, and we stand up for each other. We constantly keep entrusting others in simple ways, like telling you about ourselves, constantly sharing vulnerability because of trusting social values, like empathy and sensitivity. We share the fear of death, but we also share the fear of being misremembered. In reality, we do not want to be exclusively tied to our identities, but rather acknowledged for our achievements, passions, and humanity. Nobody chooses to be discriminated, but we are anxious about our future because we can't even celebrate what others easily have and do, and we can share a lot of things. We are put into conflict not by our choice, but by upbringings that span generations. Fighting against stigma means actively communicating with others, especially our older generation. It needs to be understood that our mental health issues are both shared and unique by experience. It becomes a struggle to fit into societal templates that were not made for us, like laws that exclude us and our experience and our capabilities, because we are not in mind when legal standards were made. Much like our rights have responsibilities, denying one denies being able to support both. We are not seen as valid despite having matching skills and qualifications, that our opportunities get lessened and erased. Imagine how that feels for a moment, because we think of these daily. It's in the news, it has been in the news, it has been in public memory. Because public memory relies on what is shared, discussed, and talked about openly, nobody can be ready for what is not mentioned. Our knowledge is our foundation for mental health. The first step in making society better is caring about things that don't affect you directly. Our struggle in mental health is in proactivity, in embedding understanding, where we aim to lessen the source of these issues, rather than apply surface-level solutions, so that future generations won't suffer as much. We build upon each other, listening to one another, as society's greatest power lies in its people and their memory. At the end of the day, will it be only our voices that help ourselves? My name is Josephine. I'm a trans woman, also a psychometrician.
So, that was John and Josephine and their views on what would they want people to understand about the LGBTQ plus community's mental health struggles. Now, our guest, Dr. Demina Mamaat, with our host, Miss Leslie Dulfo, will help us understand more about gender and mental health. What is this? And what are the other information that we need to know?
Okay, good afternoon, Dr. Dem.
Afternoon, especially.
Can you tell us about yourself po?
Okay, I'm a registered psychologist. I'm also a licensed professional teacher. I used to teach in the three major universities here in Baguio. UB, I used to work with UB, UC, and SLU. I also taught in San Pablo Seminary, and currently I am a freelance psychologist and a motivational speaker. Yeah.
That's nice po. Quite a lot.
Yes.
Parang jack of all trades din
But featuring, focusing more on psychology.
Psychology po talaga. Now we're going to talk about gender and mental health as our topic for today. Can you tell us more about gender po? Description or definitions or meanings?
Yes. Usually kasi when we talk about gender, some people confuse it with sex. So
Yes.
I like to start off with trying to differentiate these two. No, when you say sex, usually if you fill up a form, they would ask you for your, some will say sex, some will say gender. So usually sex refers to the anatomical part. No? So for example, if you were born with the anatomical part of a male, no, meaning you have the apparatus for the male sex organs, then like the penis and scrotum and what have you, then you're going to be a male. Pero pag kunyari ikaw naman ay born with the female apparatus, your sex is female. Now, where does gender come in? Gender is the social attachment or social orientation, what the society dictates and expects of that particular gender or particular sex for that matter. For example, pag gender or yung orientation mo ay, we're talking about gender per se, we're talking about your social expectation, what society expects of you as either a male or a female. Yun yung difference ng dalawa. So yung later, I think there would be some discussions of LGBT. There will be some people who are going to be born masculine, male, no? But they ascribe to the opposite gender. We'll talk about that later. Yan. Yun muna yung one. Off the bat, sex is more of the biological factor, whereas
Yeah.
gender is more of the societal factor. Yun.
When you talk about gender, it includes expectations.
Yes.
Yun po yung nasabi niyo.
Expectation and what society thinks of. So sometimes it will also come to the picture, yung mga stereotypes, no? Which,
Opo.
again, we'll talk about that later.
Sige po. And then, we are trying to find a connection po between gender and mental health.
Mm-mm.
Do you think gender affects mental health and vice versa po, mental health affects gender?
Oo, alam mo, when I was taking up psychology, maraming parang biases na nasasabi. Like, for example, if a man gets angry, no, he's asserting a point. But if a woman gets angry, ang tawag doon, hysterical. Hysterical siya. Coming from the word hysteria, no? Kaya pag mga
Yes.
babae, pag nagpatanggal ng kanilang uterus, it's called hysterectomy, di ba? So, associated lagi yan sa mga babae. Pag kunyari, nagwawala, kasi babae, di ba? Pero pag lalaki, sometimes parang they're given more leeway as to
Yes.
their being male, no? Pag ang babae umiyak, kasi emotional yan. Intindihan natin kasi emotional sila. Pero pag lalaki naman ang nag-show ng emotions, bakit yan parang bading ata? Alam mo yung mga ganung mga
Yes
stereotypes.
po. Oo,
So it really affects
stereotyping.
gender orientation, what society expects of you, tendency, yung mental health mo, the way you perceive yourself, are you meeting the expectations of others? Which is also a little bit difficult, ha? Lalo na if you're always trying to fulfill the expectations of others. Kaya nga, a lot of times when some of my counselees na they're male, but they're struggling with their identity, with their sexual identity.
Yes po.
Diba? Like, kunyari, sabihin nila, lalaki ako, I'm expected to get married, have kids, pero they don't see themselves getting married, they don't see themselves having a wife, mga ganun. So, nagka-clash na yung gender expectation of the family, no? Pag lalaki, siya magko-continue ng apelyido, ng pamilya. Pero, at one point, it's also going to be it really pressures them to meet expectations. Yun.
So, the meeting of expectations po usually tends to lead to mental health? Ganun po ba yun?
To a certain extent, yes. But sometimes it can put a pressure. Okay, I'll first explain that gender can lead to mental health. In a sense that, okay, you know that you're a male, you know the expectations of the society of you being a male. If you are comfortable with that and you're able to fulfill the expectations, there's no conflict, there's no gap, no? That results to a good mental health. Kasi syempre, expectations ng society and the way you see yourself match siya. But I said earlier on, it can also be on the other hand, no? It can also be that at one point when a person is going to be born male, tapos society expects them to be like this, na mag-asawa, magkaroon ng anak, etc., to dress this way, to talk this way, to walk this way, etc. But they don't see themselves in that area, in that particular life, then that causes already some problems with mental health. Yung parang i-resist na ng tao. That causes now anxiety. That causes now sometimes depression din yan. Kasi nga, gusto ng tatay mo mag-asawa siya. Kasi ikaw yung junior, parang ganun. But at one point, you can't, di ba? So, marami yung tao, naging friends na they're having problems with that they cannot fully go out of the closet for fear of discrimination, for fear of being rejected by the family. So, it works both ways, no? If there's consonance, meaning yung gender identity ko and society expectation is there, and my personal expectations myself, no, are all consistent, good mental health. But if, on the other hand, inconsistent, no, my identity, society's expectation, there's a gap, there's a conflict, no, then there's going to be a problem. Yun yung it will lead to mental health concerns like depression, anxiety, mga ganyan.
I've heard a lot of cases, yung mga may suicide attempts
Mm-mm.
and may mga yung natutuluyang mag-suicide.
Mm-mm.
Usually, they are fearful of going out of the closet. Parang ganun, hindi nila masabi sa pamilya nila. Kaya there are cases na yung suicide awareness nila parang nati-trigger. Parang
Mm-mm.
ganun.
Yes. Kasi nga, sometimes when the pressure is too strong, then of course that's the next possible step. That's the next solution for the person, no? However, a lot of times when we deal with these types of people, no, we have to really challenge their thoughts. Kasi doon nagsisimula your thoughts affect the way you feel, and of course, your thoughts affect the way you behave. So yun yung mga connections na dapat namin siyang i-clarify sa tao.
Mm-mm. When you do psychology po, you talk with these people, paano yung process ninyo, especially with gender and mental health?
Usually it's a long process, no? Technically, it depends also with how open the person is. It also depends on how the person cooperates, no, with us as the counselor or the therapist. Sometimes may mga counselees, mga clients na very open, no? The moment that they're going to be given some sort of a task or a certain skill to do, no, or a skill to attempt to do, some of them, they really make it to a point that they try to do it. And therefore, the therapy session comes to be very smooth. No? Pero pag may mga client, no, na they will resist, no? Of course, it's expected. No? Hindi naman lahat ng mga tao, they are going to be cooperative. No? Some will
Yes.
resist. It will take a longer time. Usually, we try to, the way I do it is I try to look into the concepts and what the person thinks of himself. No? And I try to find out certain irrational thinking, and from there, I try my best to make the person realize that these are irrational thoughts affecting his feelings, affecting his behaviors.
Pero importante po, 'di ba, between gender and mental health, yung self-awareness and identity.
Yeah, kasi right now, very strong kasi yung yung demand to be like this and to be like that, no? What do you mean by to be like this, to be like that? Society dictates how you should behave, no? Culture is another one, no? Ang hirap yung culture din kalabanin kasi if it's in your culture, then you really have to follow it to the dot. Kaya really, it's going to be, I would say, a battle for some people when they're going to have some problems with getting out of the closet or trying to accept themselves. And it's also a lifelong process to be aware of yourself, no? We cannot say that if you're older, kilala mo na sarili mo. Hindi.
Yes, that's true.
Sometimes bata pa lang ibang tao, they know themselves already. Iba naman, mamamatay na, they still don't know who they are. Kaya it's actually a case-to-case basis.
Yeah.
Mm-mm.
And then, what message can you give to LGBT plus community? Kasi, di ba, marami ngayon who's hard up, lalo na yung coming out of their closets, mga tipong ganun.
I think me being one of the LGBT, being a part of LGBT, I think I was from a generation na hindi kasing welcoming, no?
Yeah.
To come out, no? I can remember before sila Dolphy lang at saka kung abutan mo si Dolphy o
Yes naman po.
yan. Ngayon pala ang mga nagbabading-bading on TV na at one point nagiging source sila ng katatawanan, no? Right now it's going to be more easy to come out kasi there are so many people right now who can be gays, could be lesbian, no? Who are very successful, no? Yung Boy Abunda, Vice Ganda, Caitlyn Jenner, to name a few. Kaya right now, of course, Ellen DeGeneres, baka sabihin ng mga lesbian.
Oo nga po.
Tingin naman ng example. That said, my message to the LGBT people, I think it's hackneyed. Yung parang paulit-ulit na, be yourself, be yourself. I think if there's one thing that you have to, if I were to give them a message is, aside from being happy or staying happy or being themselves, I think it's very important to celebrate yourself. No, I always want to say celebrate yourself, your uniqueness. Kasi no one is someone like them. No, hindi pwedeng pare-pareho ang tao. No, even sa mga mundo ng mga kabadingan, iba-iba ang level ng kabadingan. No,
Yun nga po, opo.
May
I've
bading
seen
na
that.
correct, may mga bading na naggi-gym, pero bihis naman ng lalaki. Pero they have boyfriend.
Mm.
May
Yes
iba
po.
naman talagang kiki na babae na talagang hindi mo mawari, babae pa yan talaga o lalaki. Yung parang you already crossed the line already, no? And when they celebrate themselves, it's very important to tell them that it's okay to be themselves. They don't have to apologize to anyone for being the type of person that they are. Yan. So it's very important. To celebrate means I am this person, I am me, and I don't owe anybody an apology as long as wala akong sinasaktan and I'm just being myself. You go, girl. Yun lang ang aking maipapayo sa mga LGBT people.
Can you discuss further, ma'am? Kasi marami yung
Mm-mm.
kinds ng LGBT, ano? Baka
Mm-mm.
our listeners would be interested regarding that.
Mm-mm. Ako, mauubos ang oras natin. Pero actually,
As
that's the same, no, that's the same
in
question as,
general lang.
oo, in general. Kasi talagang halos makompleto na ng alphabet. Actually, the exact term right now is LGBTQIA. Yung class
Yes.
mo is
Opo.
LGBTQIA. So, pahaba ng pahaba yan. Kukumpletuhin namin yung buong alphabet. Of course, the lesbians, no, you have their lesbians. So these are females, technically, who are attracted to females, no? They are born
Yeah.
female and they are attracted to females, no? Even for these lesbians, meron silang mga levels. That there are some, yung makikay, nail art yan, talagang babae, pero they have a partner na babae din, no? May naman tinatawag yung bihis lalaki na, they're born females, but they are now behaving to be a male, no? Some, this will be called transgenders already, no? Trans man ang tawag doon. Of course, the gays, of course, generally, gays would be for the males, no? But right now, it can be used interchangeably. Like, for example, when Ellen DeGeneres came out in her sitcom before, sabi niya, I am gay. So, gay can be an encompassing term that will refer to a person biologically born to be either male or female, but ascribes to the opposite gender. Male siya, na pinanganak, pero sa babae siya nag-ascribe. Ganon. Or babae siyang pinanganak, tapos she ascribes to the male gender. When you say ascribe, yung parang lalaki siya, pero ang puso niya, kalooban niya, babae. Yan yung kilos niya, and so on. LG, yung B is bisexual. Yung bisexual. Of course, it's an ongoing debate sa aming mga friends na wala naman talagang bisexual eh. It's either you're gay or straight, sabi nila. But for me, there are some people who can be bisexual. It's just that they have a family. May pamilya sila. May asawa at may anak. But they still get attracted to the same sex. May mga ganon. Kaya ngayong My Husband's Lover ba yun sa GMA? Brokeback Mountain, mga ganyan. Lalaki sila pamilyado, pero they are attracted to the same sex pa rin. And of course, transgender, trans women, and trans men. Ito po yung mga, they're going to be born male, but they ascribe to the opposite gender. Most of the time, they would want to be addressed and considered to be female. Yan. Kunyari, pag lalaki, bis babae, politically correct term for them is a ma'am or a miss or a she or a her. Pag lalaki naman, trans man, ang politically correct to address them is to say sir, him, or he. No? So that's going to be already an ongoing orientation for LGBT. No? You have to ask them how they would like to be addressed.
Yeah.
Mm-mm.
When it comes to mental health, these factors, meron bang difference if you're a lesbian, you're a gay, or a bisexual, or a trans in terms of mental health? May effect ba? May differences ba sa way of mental health if you are part of LGBT or yung...
Yeah. Right now, kasi in the earlier psychological classification, I was about to say nomenclature pero napaka-technical. In the earlier classification ng mental illnesses and mental disorders, homosexuality used to be a mental illness. No? Prior to 1973, pag homosexual ka, mentally ill ka. Kasi deviant behavior. Yun yung kwan. Pero right now, I think there are so many people who embrace their sexuality, no? And they defy the societal expectations. Kaya ngayon, they have this sense of peace within themselves na, okay, I am born female, but I ascribe to the male gender, and I don't have to explain to anybody as long as I'm at peace with myself, no? Of course,
Yeah.
a lot of us, we were brokenhearted when Charis Pempenko, now, forgot his name. He's now,
Nakalimutan ko na rin.
ang pumapasok sa ko si
Ano na ang
Xander, pero iba na
pangalan
naman
niya?
yung Xander eh. Si,
Jake Cyrus?
Yan.
Tama.
Yun. Ano ba yun? Jake Cyrus, o basta whatever his name is now. And that said, when we heard about that transition, a lot of us is sayang. Ang ganda ng boses niya. She can hit the high notes, etc. Now she's taking testosterone shots. Bumaba rin yung boses niya. If you see him in ASAP, parang hirap na siyang bumirit, etc., etc. So all of us at one point, sayang yung kanyang talent, etc. No? But even the mother, di ba? Parang nasa kayakan, etc. But as long as the person feels that he came home to his real self, then who are we to judge? So, kaya marami din ibang mga friends ko, when they have themselves have a gender reassignment, hindi lang naisipan na, sige, magpapa-gender reassignment ako when they have a change on operation. It takes several processes pa, several steps. May psychological assessment din yan. There's no turning back din yan, ha? Kasi once pinutol na yan, there's no turning back. And a lot of them, some of them who were able to go through the procedure, iba sa kanila na-depress, no? They cannot enjoy as much as when they were already, as much relationships and what have you, no? Ngayon na sila ay operated on already. Others naman, they feel okay about it because they really feel that, okay, I'm really a woman, and when they see that, okay, the part of the body is now congruent to what they think, no? When say congruent, tinignan ko yung in between my legs and what I think, ako yung babae, pagtingin ko, wala na yung si Junior doon. Then, of course, at one point, there's already parang sense of peace for that person. So it's really a very complicated matter. But what I always say, gender is fluid. If I say gender is fluid, hindi mo na masabi na pag ang babae, ito lang, ang lalaki ganito lang. No, we break stereotypes already. There are females who do male jobs. There are males who do female jobs. So, gender is already fluid.
And it's very dynamic po, di ba?
Yes, very, very dynamic na siya.
Okay. What other words po do you want to tell our listeners regarding gender and mental health?
Okay, first on mental health. A lot of us, even right now, with what's happening, we get anxious, we get worried, sometimes we get depressed for those people, no, who we have lost someone to this virus, no, or what have you. Kailangan natin pangalagaan ang ating pag-iisip, no, kalusugang pag-iisip, no. I cannot translate it in Tagalog very well, yung mental health. So, at that point, very important yung have that ability to practice good mental health. Now, you might ask me, paano? No? Very important is you try to really go through your thoughts and choose the thoughts that empower you. The thoughts that do not empower you, you really have to be careful with it. What are thoughts that will make you become powerless? No, these are thoughts of negativity, thoughts filled with fear, thoughts filled with worry, thoughts filled with doubt. Yan, mga yan. The moment that you have these thoughts, I am fearful of the future, I doubt my self-worth, I am worried of tomorrow. The moment that you have this in your mind all the time, then that will really take away the power. No, you will become weaker. Mental health is the ability to see things. I'm not saying that may nangyayari, tas dead ka lang. No. You see things, but you have that ability to see things in a positive light. That you can turn this to your own advantage. That you can think of a solution to the problem. And if at one point you cannot solve the problem, because sometimes kahit anong gawin mo, wala pa rin, then good mental health is the ability to have acceptance. The acceptance that the things are that way, and we cannot just do anything but accept. Kaya nga yung serenity prayer, maganda yun, di ba? I hope I can quote it correctly.
Yes.
God grant me the courage to change the things that I can. The serenity ata, no? The serenity.
To accept the things that I cannot, parang ganun po.
To accept the things that I cannot change, and the wisdom to know the difference. Yan.
Yun.
Courage to accept the things
Yeah.
that I can, the serenity to accept the things that I cannot change, and the wisdom to know the difference. And that's also a very good prayer to really have good mental health. Yan.
Yes, that's right.
Mm-mm.
Yun lang naman po. May gusto pa
Okay.
kayong idagdag or
Ano pa idadagdag ko? Basta celebrate yourself, be happy, and always believe that every day is a day full of possibilities. Yan. Yun ang aking final word.
thank you po, Dr. Dem.
Thanks, Leslie.
And that sums up our today's episode. I hope you learned a lot about gender and mental health. May this podcast episode help us understand each other more. This has been Harleen saying, take care of yourself, take care of your mental health. You are not alone. Thank you for listening. Don't forget to share and subscribe. See you on the next episode, only here on Keep Going Podcast.